Very beautiful Tuesday morning. Thank you so much for keeping it TV47. It is that day where we get to see whether a Senate is going to give us a go-ahead in terms of running our counties respectively. That is matters finances at the 8th session, where they discuss the stalemate that has been ongoing on sharing revenue across the respective counties, different counties or leaders or senators from different counties giving their own proposals, which they term as the best. But sadly, none of them seem to agree with the other in what, of course, would be the last or the ultimate solution or proposal that would be fronted towards ensuring that counties are able to get money. And we'll be following up on that story in the course of the day, just to update you and tell you whether indeed officially they get to have answers on the same. Equally, we'll be taking a look at what has been captured on the newspapers. Waitito is on it again as the governor of Kiambu, that is Nyoro, is now calling upon the EACC and the DCI to probe further on his activities at that time when he was governor. Is it the right direction to take? This is some of the things that we'll be discussing this morning on the current affairs segment. That is the second segment, after we take a look at the newspapers and we also take a look at the news stories that we have prepared for you. And later on, we'll be discussing matters relationships. It's an interesting topic, and I want you to keep glued right here because it's going to be a nice conversation where I'll require you to participate, and I'm sure it's going to be something that is worth your listening or worth your time. So make sure that you keep it right here. My name is Linda Alela, and it is time for Morning Cafe. Morning Cafe is that program that kickstarts your day on a very, very good note, informing you, updating you, entertaining you, and making sure that you are part and parcel of TV47. Important that you be part of this conversation. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela at TV47KE. Tell us what it is that you'd want us to discuss. Expound some more on the issues that are of importance, or tell us what it is that is happening around you. Equally today, we'll be taking a look at what is happening on the roads, just so we update you so that you're not caught in traffic. Thank you so much, and karibu once again. So let's kickstart by taking a look at what it is that my editorial team has prepared. And as the world battles with the shortage of COVID-19 testing reagents, the government has taken Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, to come up with locally made testing reagents in order to avert the testing current capacity crisis. This is as the number of COVID-19 cases in the country now nears the 27,000 mark after 492 more people tested positive as of yesterday. And Zainab Mohammed has the details.
The global shortage of COVID-19 testing reagents is becoming a serious challenge to most countries' testing capacities, a matter that has resulted to the government opting for locally made testing reagents.
Two of the reagents, it is a global concern. It's a global challenge. It is not that the Ministry of Health is not fighting to get these reagents. We are fighting as much as we can.
According to the Ministry of Health, the Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, will be researching on a way of Kenya locally producing the reagents.
Going forward, let Kenyans know we need to have our own local production of pharmaceutical products.
The ministry further says even though local production cost will be high, Kenya requires a homegrown solution, with its current testing capacity standing at 6 per 1,000 people, 71 per 10,000 people, and 705 per 100,000 persons.
We used to test 100, 200, 300 people per day. Now we are on to 4,000, 7,000, 8,000 even. It is according to the availability of the reagents.
Counties at the Somalia-Kenya border have been flagged off as high-risk areas due to possibilities of spillover infections from Somalia.
I think it is very, very important that Garissa, Wajir, Mandela, and the counties that neighbor our brothers in Somalia be on the lookout and really be careful, because we have no doubt that there are cases coming from the neighborhood.
The number of COVID-19 cases in the country has risen to 26,928 cases after 492 more people tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. 534 patients have been discharged from various hospitals across the country as 3 more people succumbed to the virus. For TV47, I'm Zainab Mohammed.
Now, the Health Cabinet Secretary came out, venting out and bringing out his frustrations on the ministry efforts or the fact that people are coming out to say that, they are out here on matters corruption. Kagwe says that the days are numbered as NAK Kenya Party leader Martha Karua calls on Kagwe to carry the burden of the 1 ton of corruption at the ministry. Mwangi Minor reports.
Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe now says cartels at Afya House are now fighting back his efforts, but he's not relenting in his fight to weed out the cartels. He sounded a resounding warning to the cartels, warning them that their days are nigh.
We are determined, whether in KEMSA, whether in the ministry, whether in anything connected with the Ministry of Health, we are determined that this be done. And I think you have no idea how bad it is. You are just mentioning KEMSA here. And you are mentioning something, Ministry of Health, in passing. My friend, blood from the ministry has been found in Mogadishu. Blood.
Kagwe says he didn't want to divulge the details in public, but asked Kenyans to be patient with the fight against the cartels.
Cartels are not beaten overnight. They fight back. And I am not going to be explaining every day and telling Kenyans, this is exactly how you are fighting a cartel. How do you disclose your strategy to your enemies when you know they are going to come for you?
However, NAK Kenya Party leader Martha Karua has asked the CS to carry the burden of corruption at the ministry.
He also admitted there were misfits in Afya House or Mafia House. He is the boss of Afya House now. He has to choose whether to be the boss of Mafia House or Afya House.
Karua says the COVID-19 pandemic has opened doors for looting at the Ministry of Health, especially when it comes to procurement, as Kenyans are ravaged by the pandemic.
We are seeing new revelations of theft and abuse of healthcare monies by public servants, their close relatives and partners in crime, at a time when millions of Kenyans cannot simply afford to live.
At the same time, she has called on the CS to make public the utilization of funds allocated to the Ministry of Health, donations and grants from well-wishers for proper accountability.
We demand the government publishes and makes accessible the roster of beneficiaries of the government COVID-19 relief funds and PPEs to date.
Karua has termed Kagwe tours to counties as PR gimmicks, as he only visits counties that are doing well and leaving out counties that are not properly prepared for the pandemic. The Senate has already asked the Auditor General to do a special audit on COVID-19 funds. Mwangi Minor, TV47, Nairobi.
And our Senate will be making its 8th attempt to unlock the ongoing revenue sharing deadlocked today afternoon. 2 proposals are already before the House after Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja's proposals were merged with other proposals. The House leadership has promised a consensus come today.
Tuesday afternoon, Senate will for the 8th time try to unlock the revenue sharing formula standoff. The sitting coming after intense lobbying over the weekend and the better part of Monday. Sources indicate the senators have agreed to merge Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja's proposals with other proposals before the House. The House will now have 2 proposals, one raised by Meru Senator Mithika Linturi and another proposal that was being drafted Monday afternoon by the House leadership.
And I'm confident that this stalemate will end tomorrow. Of course, I have my amendments on the floor. There are certain improvements we've agreed on to come onto my amendments tomorrow. And so Kenyans should have hope. Whether you're in Nakuru or Mandera or Nairobi or Migori.
Pangu niseme ya kwamba tukiondoa Sakaja basi tunaendelea mbele. Iwe sasa ni Linturi na hilo wazo lingine. Kwa mawazo ni mawili, la Linturi na hili ambalo kwa hivi sasa tunaenda kupika.
Tomorrow's sitting comes a few days after ODM leader Raila Odinga changed tune on the formula, calling for a win-win formula. ODM senators were divided in last week's vote. Attempts by Majority Whip Irongo Kangata to whip Jubilee members over the weekend, however, hit a rock after those opposed to the third generation formula skipped his informal meeting.
Those who had started intimidating members and threats etc. at least have also calmed down, because they've realized that there's no one to intimidate in the Senate.
Meru Senator Mithika Linturi is proposing between 250 and 270 billion shillings to be shared using the current formula, while the remainder of the 316.5 billion shillings allocated to the counties will be shared using the disputed third generation formula.
Senator na kila mwananchi hapa Kenya atafurahia.
Senator Kangata should be ashamed that his argument is that for his county to benefit, Tharaka Nithi should lose. For his county to benefit, Samburu should lose. For his county to benefit, Tana River and Taita Taveta should lose. My responsibility is to fight for more resources from national government to go to counties. That is the way Elgeyo Marakwet is going to benefit.
A section of senators have been accused of being influenced to cause the stalemate. Nancy Kimuyu, TV47.
Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday witnessed the groundbreaking for the construction of 16-bed capacity hospitals at Muthura in Uthiru and Kianda in Kibra, as well as a 24-bed capacity facility at Maendeleo Village in Mukuru kwa Ruben. The three hospitals are part of such facilities being developed by the National Metropolitan Service, that is NMS. Notably, Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko was not in attendance, and President Kenyatta has held a number of CT tours over the weekend in what appears to be auditing the NMS.
Na kwa wale wote ambao watakuwa wamechukua NHIF card under UHC, matibabu yote katika hiyo hospitali itakuwa ya bure. Tunaelewana? Na hiyo ni lengo letu la kuhakikisha ya kwamba maendeleo sasa, na ndivyo nimeamua chini ya Jemedari Bandi, na nimemwambia tunataka kuona maendeleo katika kila mtaa wa Nairobi hii yetu. Hatutaki kuona maendeleo peke yake Muthaiga na Kitasuru na Kileleshwa na Kilimani. Tunataka maendeleo yafike kule wananchi ambao ni wengi kama hapa Mukuru.
And the family of former Changamwe Member of Parliament Ramadan Kajembe has demanded an apology from the Health CS Mutahi Kagwe and his education counterpart Professor George Magoha, as well as Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko, over remarks they allegedly made against the family. Kagwe is said to have accused one of Kajembe's sons for infecting his parents with COVID-19. Kajembe's first wife died on July 24th with COVID-19, while the second wife succumbed to the virus in March this year. Kajembe died of COVID-19 last week at the Pandya Memorial Hospital. Let's take a look at that.
La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la.
We demand an apology from CS Kagwe, CS Magoha, Mike Mbuvi Sonko. These three individuals, we are giving them an ultimatum that they should apologize to the family within 14 days, and if they won't do that, we will force to take legal action against these three individuals.
There are many Kenyans who have lost their parents, their friends, brothers and sisters and children because of this pandemic. I'm not seeing why, because it is us, he has to mention it in public, blaming my brother for it. Let him take the responsibility as a minister. And he should come up clearly to tell us the strategies he has. Mutahi Kagwe should stand up professionally. He should come up and tell us.
Now, a flock of livestock has been recovered from locals in both Kajiado and Deya area in Kiambu County. This is after security agencies were deployed in the area to help end the ongoing clashes that have claimed lives of 3 people.
Some of the livestock have been recovered from both communities with the help of deployed security agencies in partnership with the village elders. According to Kiambu Police Commander, they will be handed over to the respective communities once full recovery is done.
From Kajiado side, 72 livestock were stolen, cows were stolen. So far we have recovered 54 out of the 72. Therefore we are still missing 18. And our officers are out. Still, we are looking for the 18. A total of 49 cows were stolen, out of which 39 were recovered. We are still missing 10, out of which I'm told that 8 has been recovered at Wasodong. And we intend to retain these animals here because we had a security committee of the Kajiado sub-county and the Kiambu sub-county security committees. They agreed that they will also bring our stock that we have lost. And tomorrow we have a very high-profile meeting, which will be attended by the governors and the regional team and the county security committee teams. I intend to hand over these animals after we receive what was stolen from outside.
The cattle rustling between the residents living at the border of the Kiambu and Kajiado counties have left at least 3 Deya residents dead and more than 15 others injured. One person was beaten to death as they were following his cows that had been stolen and led to Kajiado. According to Timole Korean, a Nyumba Kumi Kajiado initiative official, the cattle rustlers should be treated as thieves and face the full course of the law. The trend also
ni wakora, hata kama ni wa Masai, ni wakora ambaye hata mimi siwezi nikasema ni wakina nani. Wamejifisha ndani yetu na wanatoka mbali.
Kiambu Governor James Nyoro and other security officials being chased away by angry youths on Sunday. The security is now heightened in the area with the deployment of GSU officers, anti-stock theft police unit and local regular police officers.
I have enough deployment along the Babason. Therefore, issue of incursions within Kiambu is not likely. Even though I have the GSU here, I have the anti-stock theft units, 2 companies from the anti-stock theft units. I have my local police. I have mobilized all the securities within the county.
Now, religious leaders in the North Rift region have called on the government to exercise fairness while implementing the Ministry of Health protocols to curb the spread of COVID-19. The leaders claim that the protocols have been harshly implemented in worship places, unlike in other social gatherings.
Led by Bishop John Kaka, Pastor Sami Malwa and the Chair Council of Imam and Preachers of Kenya CIPK North Rift Abubakar Bini, they have cited while political meetings and other social places of gatherings have continued to flout the Ministry of Health protocols, places of worship have been limited.
Linalotuhuzunisha na kutusikitisha ni ya kwa kuwa hizi nyumba za ibada ndio zimepatiwa uzito zaidi kuangaliwa na kutunguzwa, ili hali kumekuwa na uzembe wa hali ya juu katika maeneo mengine ya mikusanyiko. Hakuna social distance, hakuna chochote kinachofanyika. Ukiangalia katika mahoteli zetu utaona watu wanakula, hakuna vipimo za kupimwa, wala hakuna kitu chochote ambazo zilizoekewa zinazofuatwa. Sasa ikiwa ni sehemu za kukuza maadili nzuri ziwe zinafuatiliwa kwa kama ambayo kwamba ni watu hawana mipangilio.
The leaders have also urged the Ministry of Health to provide new guidelines and protocols that will allow children attend places of worship in order to get moral guidance.
Watusaidie waweze kutupa mwongozo fulani ili tuweze kuleta watoto wawe pamoja nasi, waweze kuwa katika hali ya kufundishwa na maadili yaendelee, na hata hizi mimba za mapema zitafungua.
And with the increased cases of depression among Kenyans, many have been urged to attend places of worship for counseling.
Watu wamepata stress, watu wamepata mambo mengi kulingana wanapungukiwa na chakula, wanapungukia na mambo mengi, lakini wakiingia ndani ya hekalu wanapata maadili mazuri na masomo mazuri, ili wakienda kutekeleza nyumbani kwao wanakuwa watu wa kuweka nyumba zao na familia zao vyema.
Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Uasin Gishu County.
And let's cross over to Diana Iriza. Now, the Rwandan Minister of Infrastructure, Clever Gatete, has announced a pledge of 730 smartphones in support to the ongoing Rwanda Connect Challenge. The campaign seeks to mobilize people to contribute to providing smartphones to Rwandans who cannot afford them. Diana Iriza from Kigali, Rwanda, has the details.
Now, in December 2019, MTN Rwanda partnered with the Ministry of ICT and Innovation to provide smartphones to unconnected households in Rwanda. The Ministry of Infrastructure and its affiliated agencies announced a pledge of 730 smartphones in support to the ongoing Rwanda Connect Challenge. The campaign seeks to connect Rwandan households with smartphones in a bid to accelerate digital transformation in the country. The essence of the campaign is for private companies, government institutions, and individuals to voluntarily come together and drive the digital agenda to connect all Rwandans with smartphones to the digital world. The total contribution from infrastructure sector is 86,903,541 Rwandan francs. And the number of smartphones that are being distributed is 1,159. Diana Iriza, Kigali, Rwanda.
That is impressive right there, and of course we only hope that it works out well. Now, time that we take a break. We'll be coming back with the newspapers after that. And we're back with the newspapers, and joining me this morning is that one man who makes me have tough times, trying to tongue twist his name, Alenga Torostat. Good morning. He is a communication consultant. How are you, Alenga?
I'm very fine, Linda. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good to have you.
Great to see you again.
And straight to A, we'll have the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, and the Daily Nation. I hope you're on standby so we can crank on this. And definitely you expect the issue that is set to happen today, or the 8th session from the Senate, or the Senate is set to be held today. I mean, that one is making center stage across all the newspapers, and as would be said by the People Daily and expounded some more on page 4. This is the front page. They say it's a do or die as Senate meets on revenue, and we are likely to see so much so culminating out of this session for today. So fireworks expected on the floor of the House after leaders failed to agree on a formula to share the money. Briefly, just briefly, what are your expectations today?
We expect the usual standoff today, because there has not been any consensus built around the amendments and the formula that was turned out of the parliamentary, the Senate Budget Committee. Mm-hmm. But again, most fundamental to discuss is the issue of what the Senate Budget Committee came up with, and then the amendments by Sakaja and Senator Mutula. So there's a fix on that, because if the amendments by Senator Sakaja and Mutula sail through, mm-hmm. then they might also face a challenge in the courts because of lack of public participation. So that is a fix already. Mm-hmm. And the other one that was brought to the floor of the House by the Budget Committee is controversial, mm-hmm. and it's quite a divisive one. So we are in a catch-22 situation. So this afternoon, we expect another standoff in the Senate.
Okay, well, and we expand some more on that. That is on the current affairs segment. But yes, indeed, it's a session that we all are looking forward to see whether we're going to get answers to it. And also, counties that are the richest have been named. We'll be taking a look at that as we proceed. But also on the front page of the People Daily, Uhuru takes service delivery to the people. This is also a story that I've captured right there and expounded some more on page 5. President Uhuru Kenyatta witnesses the groundbreaking of the construction of 16-bed capacity hospitals at Muthua in Udheru and Kianda in Kibra, as well as a 24-bed capacity at Maendeleo Village in Mukuru, Kwaruben. This in regards to the performance of NMS. Do we give them credit?
Indeed, we give him credit, and also looking at the days that the president remains within office, it is imperative for him to now go around and look at how things are and get a clear picture of the country that he's going to leave to his successor in the next about 730 days to come. Mm-hmm. So, and also just to touch on the issue of the NMS is that Nairobi is quickly receiving a change, a big change through the NMS leadership. And that is something we really need to encourage, and we really need to give credit where it is due.
Okay, well, let's wait and see whether indeed NMS is going to surprise us. And like they said, Sonko was in absence, or was not absent for the session, and still the tussle is ongoing between Sonko and the NMS. And away from that, the number or the updates given on COVID-19 in the country, and we stand at 26,928, and those were the confirmed cases as of yesterday. 13,485 recoveries, which is a good number for that matter. Most of them coming from home-based care, which is something that has been commended also, and 423 fatalities as it stands today. Away from that, more pain in hospitals for COVID patients, still the same on your own, and the cost of essential in the fight against pandemic has shot up, and government says it can no longer foot the bills that have become unbearable, leaving patients to shoulder the burden. Captured on page 6, and also down there, just giving you a perspective or a preview of what you expect at this point. Oxygen, a 4.6 kilogram oxygen cylinder was retailing at 1,900. The cost has risen to 2,200, while the 11.5 kilogram has been pushed to 4,000 from 3,500, and the surgical mask that had been retailing for 150 for a packet with 50 pieces has skyrocketed to 2,500. That expensive price of hand gloves has been raised to 700 for a packet of 50 pieces, up from 230, and a 500 ml bottle of sanitizer that hitherto retailed at 421 shillings has since been pushed to 700 shillings. And finally, the cost of a full protective personal equipment wear has also shot up from the initial 8,500 and to around 12,000 as it stands. And we had a conversation yesterday with the panel of the day, and the argument was that it is unfair that at this time Kenyans have to bear the brunt, have to bear the prices of dealing with COVID-19, yet so much money has been channeled to deal with the same, and so much, donations have come from overseas to help us deal with this. What do you make of such, occurrences and such, records that are being projected?
It is indeed a difficult moment for the health sector in the country, given that the numbers of COVID-19 infections are ever rising instead of going down. But then from the statistics you have displayed, it is a great thing to note that we have about half the total number of infections have actually recovered. That's a very good step in a positive direction. But again, when it comes to managing this pandemic, it's going to be very difficult for country. And in fact, in the next few months, if we go by the statistics, it's going to be increasingly difficult. So the issue of funding versus the expenditure is a difficult one to really talk about, because this is a disease that takes away. It is taking away the money. There's nothing that you are generating out of it. It's not like you got a certain fund to manage it, and it's also coming back. The government is churning out. The government is churning out the monies in a bid to treat and also to manage the spread of the pandemic. So it's really a difficult situation in terms of getting a real robust fund to manage this pandemic. And this boils down to our own way of dealing with it as citizens. We must reach a moment where we actually take this very seriously, because it's a certain level of ignorance that is already on the streets. People are not wearing masks. People are not social distancing. We are continuing to expose ourselves, and we are waiting for government to come in and do everything. It's going to be difficult. It calls for all of us to be attentive on this and to try to reduce this pandemic to as much as we can.
All right. And that's a developing story. We wait to see what will take shape and how the government is going to come in to intervene. And on the front page of the Standard newspaper, Coast Tycoon ordered to repay 1.8 billion he got from SGR land. High Court directs Mohammed Jaffa to return the money he was paid by the National Land Commission in 2014. That is after he found that it found that he illegally evicted squatters and registered the property under his name or in his name. That is captured on page 20, pretty much expounding what happens on matters corruption right here in the country, and an unfortunate occurrence for that matter. And also another story, Kenya's richest counties listed, like I had said earlier on. Nairobi, Meru, Nyeri and Kirinyaga lead the pack in jobs, housing, education and health, while Turkana, Mandera, Samburu and Busia are poorest according to latest Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics data. This has been expounded on page 2 and 3. What do you make of this, even as we discuss the stalemate on matters revenue?
I think, Linda, first and foremost, that is not really a good headline to come up, especially on a morning when we are expecting the Senate to make a crucial decision on revenue share.
Oh, yeah.
It is quite a divisive headline that is eliciting negative emotions. When we start classifying counties in terms of who is richest and who is poorest, what kind of emotions are we fetching out from the people? Devolution was meant to cure such inequalities and take away the feeling of marginalization and being classified based on poverty and richness in indices. So it would not be really a progressive headline to wake up to on such a crucial day.
All right, well, and we equally wait to see whether this will play out or this will inform the decisions that are going to be made moving on how revenue will be shared across different counties. And family that only talks through lawyers. This is the Eastern Bypass area where, of course, family has turned out to have all this land, but to them is more of a curse because they cannot decide on how best that they can share this land. Interestingly, now they've decided that they won't be conversing or having a conversation between themselves, but the lawyers will do that. This all, painting a picture of the numerous land battles that people continue having on respective different areas. But that aside, this story also that has been captured on page 4 of this of the Standard newspaper is still on the Senate, and that is page 2 and page 3, just painting out page 4, speaking of these Senate expectations of the day. But coming to the front page of the Daily Nation, let's take a look at what we see. And I don't know why this is not projecting on my screen. Mr. Director, if you can give me the front page of the Daily Nation, it will be very good, because it looks like there's some bit of a technical hitch right there. And there we go. So for Ruto allies, it's no game of chicken. A game of chicken refers to a situation in which neither side will back down for fear of seeming cowardly. Now, the DP supporters have made a tactical return, captured on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And as you can see also on the front page, the allies to Deputy President William Ruto projected right there. So the campaigns are still ongoing. Tanga is not relenting, and as it is, it's a conversation that is actually being projected, or it is extended to the level of the Senate. And I think in a huge way, it has also determined the activities of the Senate, the conversations that have been going on in regards to the stalemate of sharing of revenue.
Linda, there's a book called The Burdens, and the writer of The Burdens says, that is John Ruganda, he says, too much ambition make frustrated men, and too little ambitions take them nowhere. So what is happening in the Tanga camp right now is a result of too much ambition, and they fetched out their daggers quite too early in the battle. Before even the battle began, they only had the drums and they were out there. So right now they're trying to manage themselves and wake up to the reality, which is going to be a very difficult scenario. But as it were, we could actually summarize them as a spent force at the moment, because there was too much speed in their race, and apparently they were competing amongst themselves. Now there's no one to compete to. Everybody else is quiet and just looking at them. And then now it's a time for them to actually just retreat and figure out what next step they're going to take.
Okay, well, we'll wait to see. That is 2022, and we won't be here campaigning for them. Let's wait and see what is this change of tact that they are talking about. That aside, some reports right here as captured on the front page of the Daily Nation. Damage to body, recovered patients suffer damaged heart, lungs, and brain. This is a story expounded on page 8. But these are the aftermaths of one getting COVID-19 and getting to have that. Getting to recover, which is pretty much unfortunate and scaring at the same time. So you get details of it on page 8, and you get to know how best you can handle these. And CRA offers way out. Senators go to House divided, but agency has solution. And the solutions have been captured on page 12 of the Daily Nation equally. Do we still have you, Alenga?
Yes.
Oh, you're still there. Yeah, there's a funny sound that got me thinking we've lost you at this point. But yes, on the Senate, I think we can only wait and see what will play out in regards to the same. But also, supermarkets go down with 43.3 billion debts, and they were not supposed to collapse. But when they did, once robust kings of the local retail sector left a trail of expensive tears and went down with more than 43 billion of money. By any estimation, it is a tragedy for many businessmen or businesses that relied on these supermarkets to survive. And the retail chains, boards and banks have pulled the plugs on the struggling businesses, and creditors can only watch and count their losses, captured on page 4 and 5. And it's a very unfortunate occurrence, as you can see. Started with the Chumi, came to Nakumaris. Now we're talking of Tuskys, and the fear is huge. And we're looking at supermarkets that were employing numerous people and, you know, getting stuff from numerous suppliers. And here we're discussing about the losses today.
I think the retail business in the country is a shaky one, because these supermarkets, you will study a certain trend about them. They will open up and then they start massive expansion and then they start caving in. Mm-hmm. So if the people managing this, the expansion vis-a-vis the sustainability, mm-hmm. then perhaps that is where the solution could be. Yeah. Because with the expansion comes added responsibilities, financial strain, and all that. And especially in a moment like this, when we're going through ravaging times with the pandemic, it's really tricky because the purchase power is also going down.
Okay. Well, and that's unfortunate, but we hope that we're able to salvage this. Coming to page 2, this is actually a story that has equally been captured on the front page of the Daily Nation, but expounded on page 2. And this is the cry of teenagers. Listen to teenagers and help. Mental illness is affecting us. Troubled homes and social media pressure among of the things that cause anxiety on our youths. And I have been struggling with losing a whole year of studies due to COVID-19 pandemic. This is according to the teenager that wrote this. I watched in shock and horror recently when a 20-year-old Chebet Rono confessed on the show that they were anxious about acceptance of herself and that of others. And this is the truth. This is the picture that is there. This is amongst the untold stories. These are among the shadow pandemics that we are facing today as it stands. Have we failed as a society?
Linda, it's a difficult moment to parent today, because there is issues like social media, which are bringing unnecessary competition amongst young people. They're feeling out of space and they strongly need a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. We also have parents that have little time with their children. We hardly speak to our children. Most of our children are parented by the television, the internet, and the house helps. And it's a difficult moment. So there needs to be a lot of conversations between parents and their children. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a lot of sharing amongst between their parents and their children. We need to listen to the issues that this generation has. Their issues are very unique, and their spirits are not as strong as the spirits of the yesteryears. Today they are shaken by very small things, so we need to talk to them and make them accept themselves and accept the various diversities they come from. Most fundamental to note that is at this point we have teenagers that were supposed to be clearing their form for this year, and they will not do that. So we cannot wish away that. We need to speak to them and tell them this thing has happened, and they will have another opportunity. Perhaps it's even now a better opportunity for them. We need to talk to them through this, to the acceptance of what has happened to them. They're too young to deal with it, and we cannot just ignore that and leave it to them. So it's a moment that parents really need to capitalize on the time they're having with their children, to speak to them, to mentor them, and to strengthen them in their lives and in their decisions.
Mm-hmm. All right, yes, and we can only wait to see how best we can help them. But it's incumbent upon all of us to take up the challenge and ensure that, once in a while we check up on our teenagers, speak to them, have a session with them. You never know how much that would come handy. And just taking a look at other stories that have been captured, and I think nothing much so far so. high deaths among youth worrying. Of course, this is in regards to COVID-19. Could this be informing this? And I mean, the fact that youth are out there, are we dealing with a careless lot? Are we dealing with a lot that is just out there, and lazily approaching this issue of COVID-19?
Yeah, it also boils down from how even the older generation are treating this pandemic. There are people who are even casting it as lies by the government. There's those who are not even bothering to take care. I have, if you travel out of Nairobi, you'll realize the level of ignorance out there and the way people are just going on with their businesses as usual. If you fly some routes out of Nairobi, you realize people are still sitting together in the matatus and they're not caring. People are not even covering their mouths while they're sneezing or coughing. So all this, the younger generation is also watching, and then they propagate the same. So it is really a concerted effort that we need to put together to be sensitive about this, to create increased awareness, and then to be able to take care of ourselves. Basically, that's what we need to do.
All right. There's an interesting, cartoon edition right here on the People Daily. And I think this is in regards to the latest move by the police to digitize activities, saying that this will highly spearhead the activities and also will ensure that, justice is streamlined in a very good way. So there is this lady who's come to report at the desk, in one of the police stations. And according to the cartoon person, Tanu, says that, it's probably going to be a tough time at this particular time. So the policemen are standing right there or seated right there, and they're telling her, Madam, digital occurrence book works like Facebook, and you start by sending us a friend request called Kitu Kidogo, then we can accept your complaint. And she's right there hurting, probably, seeking to see whether she would get an, P3 in regards to the same. So what are the likelihoods that this digitizing of the police systems is really going to work and is really going to be friendly for the people who always go out there day in, day out to report their cases?
I think what Stano's cartoon is hinting is a point that have we inducted our police officers on the use of the digital occurrence book before we rolled out this technology? Did we take them through the necessary requisite training? And then are they compliant with it in the first place? And then I think he's placing it on the backdrop of the systemic police issues that we have had in this country. But I think from my point of view, we should be positive about the small changes that are taking place in the police service, and we should have confidence in them. We should build trust around them so that we can be able to work together. We should also give them a moment to appreciate them and actually understand that it is a journey. And if the journey has begun with digitalization of their records, are we going to get it right? If there will be some gaps and some flaws, then we can systematically fix them so that we achieve a police service that we actually want. We cannot, let's stop complaining about them all the time, but then let's work towards the police service that we want.
All right, rightfully put right there. I think it's a good move, as many people lauded it. But importantly is that we need to ensure that we are all tech savvy, so we don't get lost in between and in the same, lose the ultimate reason as to why we wanted to ensure that, some of these issues are dealt with very fast and in a smooth way. And coming to the cartoon edition of the Daily Nation right here is about the elections and the BBI, and we saw Right Honorable Raila Odinga maintaining his stand that we are going to hold the BBI. We're going to ensure that we have a referendum before the end of the year, so at least we're able to, make changes and on the constitution, as has been highlighted. There are very many loopholes on the same. And also, some changes in terms of, the governance system that have been proposed on the BBI. So this is what the cartoon edition on the Daily Nation says. I insist that there's going to be a referendum, or a referendum must come before the general elections. And Right Honorable Raila Odinga is the person who's handling, yes, the horses right there, and one of them is written referendum, the other is written elections, and he says that I call the shots and we should have a referendum. Remember, there's been that referendum bill 2020 that proposes that we hold elections together with a referendum, because as it stands right now as a country, we do not have enough finances or resources to hold a referendum separately and equally hold an election separately. What do you make of this?
I was just trying to look at the cartoon, and it shows two horses both being held by Honorable Raila Odinga, and the horses are looking at each other. So clearly there is none that is moving forward.
Yeah.
One is standing in the way of the other, actually. But then what the remark I can make about the BBI and the election thing is that BBI, I think, in my anticipation, I hope it comes out in three parts. We have the changes that will need popular initiative, that's the referendum, and then the changes that will need legislative touch, and the changes that will need the executive goodwill. So when we have those three issues outlined clearly, then we can know which direction to move. Now, coming to the point of at what point do we have a referendum, or do we put it together with the election? My take is we could actually first have the referendum and finish with it, and then get into the election, because we have seen over time how our election period has been very controversial, and if we add on to it another recipe of the referendum, it's going to be more chaotic, which will not be really healthy for country. Then you can imagine you're waiting for presidential elections, you're waiting for your MP elections, your governor's election, and you're also waiting for the result of the referendum. We don't know which one will give a lot of weight in that circumstance.
All right. Well, we can only wait and see. And as we drop on the newspapers in the country, let's take a look at what is on the international scene, courtesy of Reuters. And Lebanon's leaders were warned on explosive at a port. This is an exclusive story that has been captured right there. And we've seen most of the Lebanese leaders deciding to step aside. I mean, is there going to be anyone who's running the government at all? And is it the right move coming from this leadership at this time? And, we all witnessed that blast. That was indeed quite unfortunate. Numerous people lost their lives, around 163 people, 16,000 more, were injured, and some 16,000 buildings were destroyed. That is according to the reports that we get.
First and foremost, Linda, it is a very sad occurrence that this happened, and it took away the lives of many people. It injured a lot, and it's not really something that should have happened at all. We really feel for the families that have been affected in this tragedy. However, it's a lesson in our safety around certain elements that we store or we keep. Even for other countries, it's time for them to learn. But again, I don't know why this happened, because it is something that has happened before. It happened in the US in 2014. It happened in China in 2015, and it was the same element of the same element that exploded. So going by that, and also learning from the other people's experiences, then the Lebanese should have been in a position to handle these elements with a lot of care. But again, I am never a proponent of stepping down in terms of a disaster, because if you look at it from a different perspective, that is the time the country needs leadership. So when you step down, you're given avoidance, and I think you're just running away from the question that will be asked. This is the time the government of that country would have come out in a more robust manner to determine where the country is going, to stand with the families that have lost their loved ones, to find a solution for those ones that have been rendered maybe disabled and all that. This is the time the government should have been very vocal and very strong, and to stand with the people instead of resigning. That's a defeatist move, I think, in my opinion.
Well put. And as America awaits the elections, Joe Biden is expected to report on who's going to be the running mate and or announce U.S. presidential running mate this week. Joe Biden is the Democratic presidential candidate. And of course, this is what he declared in an interview on the finalists to be running mate, and his campaign is ready to announce his choice as soon as this week. Person familiar with the process, of course, as it stands, or the process that would be considered good for one who would stand out as a running mate at this particular time. A tight race as the U.S. awaits elections. And yesterday, in an unfortunate occurrence, Trump was escorted out of a briefing that is in White House after some strange shooting that was later, considered to be a shooting against a person who, the U.S. Secret Service abruptly escorted Trump. Let's just speak it directly from what it is that they say, that there's a person that had been shot by law enforcement and taken to the hospital, and according to him, that is Trump. He says that the suspect had been armed, and of course, saying that no one had been equally harmed also on the Secret Service as they discussed that, or as they took that under control. So there are numerous cases that are happening. And interestingly, most of these international stories are in regards to what is happening in, matters COVID-19. And some of them actually reopening amid the surge of the numbers, a clear indication that, the world is probably done and dusted and tired of the fact that they're not able to deal with COVID-19. And they say that, in as much as the numbers are going up, it's important that we also get to save our economy. So Papua New Guinea to lift lockdown despite surge on COVID-19 cases. Is this a direction to go as we wind up?
I think for Papua New Guinea, it's a matter of life has to go on. But again, even as they open up the country, I think perhaps they should have really come up with proper plans to try and manage the pandemic, because this is something that is going to be with us for a very, very long time. So freezing a country for an extended period may not necessarily be a solution, because it will injure the economy of the country. And so they need to open up, but I'm very sure by the time they reach that decision of opening up, they have weighed the options, and probably it is they think it will be, they have certain mechanisms that could help to manage the levels. And then just a little bit touch on the Trump issue.
Yeah.
I think it's a moment for Trump to also reflect on the gun policy in the U.S. A discussion that was brought to him and he brushed it off. And if you see a moment where even his life is threatened, then he needs to also rethink about the gun policy in the U.S. And also at this time, if you look at the Secret Service and what they speak about the security of the president, they actually say the security of the president is more at risk inside the U.S. than even when he's on a broad travel. So it's really a difficult moment for Trump when he's going into the election. And you have seen the Black Lives Matter has really had a dent on his personality and his candidature and his place as an incumbent in the shortcoming election. So it's really a difficult moment for him, and I think it might not be really an easy re-election for him, even if he makes it through.
Okay, well, Alenga Chorostad, a communication consultant, thank you so much for your time, and equally thank you so much for this session as we cross over to a different session altogether, where we discuss what way forward for the Senate as we await the declaration that they're going to make today. Be sure to be part of this discussion. I'll be telling you how best you get to be part of the discussion later on the next phase after this break.
Thank you, Linda. Have a good day.
what counties are going to benefit out of this. But as it is said, every other county should be able to celebrate the agreement that they will come with or will come up with. So this morning, we have Julius Owino, aka Majimaji, joining us to expound some more on what his take would be in regards to the revenue stalemate that is ongoing at the level of the Senate. We'll also be picking up other issues as we proceed. And we also have Charles Munyui, who's a political analyst, to expand more also on the same. Gentlemen, Hamjambo. Good to have you this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so what way? Who is as eager as I am on what it is that the Senate is going to declare today? Any of you can start.
I think it's going to be the committee way, if you ask me. It's the only way that is there. Now that we are stood guided that the Commission on Revenue Allocation way is not binding. So we committee that has crafted a version of the same of the formula. And I think the procrastination is hurting everyone. And it means it cannot be that there is such a big, huge problem that cannot be resolved. It's only that Senate does not want to solve this issue. And it's not just about passing the formula. It is about resolving the issues around the reason as to why there is an impasse in the first place. And there are provisions in the Constitution that will be able to help them to do that.
All right. Well, Majimaji, we've not had a session with you to discuss on this. I think I've spoken to Charles before on the same matter. And as we all waited to see whether the Senate is going to get a solution, well, they probably proved us wrong. And they said, you know what, this time around, we're going to be rigid as possible so we get solutions to it. So what are your expectations?
My expectations are very cozy debate, first of all, because it's been 7 times.
Yeah.
I would love for them to have a decision, but if you miss it 7 times, the 8th time might just be like the 6th time. Because the more they've debated, each senator has been informed now more politically, and they're carrying the weight of their constituents, for example. They're carrying the weight of their county. Like if you saw yesterday, Malcolm had been put under pressure to change his mind by his voters back at home. So this will be tougher than even the 7th one and the 6th one. But they must have a decision at the end of the day. So I'd like to go with Charles that we are optimistic they'll come up with a decision finally, but it's going to be tougher than any other day. But at the end of the day, I think what was proposed would be the best decision according to me.
All right, and these conversations that have been going on, just finding these figures, trying to deliberate on what way forward, meetings being held. When you hear that the Senate is under pressure, when you hear that the Senate is under threat on, what decision that they're supposed to make, what does it paint as a picture, Charles, of, democracy, of that aspect of leaders going out there and speaking on behalf of the people without fear or favor?
Let me put it this way. I have not had the president put across a position on this issue because the president respects the Commission on Revenue Allocation as a constitutional commission. The president respects the fact that there is a Senate that is supposed to make a determination on this issue, and that's a constitutional provision. And I think the president is only waiting for that bill. And he has signed, in the past, he has signed so many allocation of revenue bills. This is not the first one. He has signed so many of them. And I can't remember the last time there was an issue around anything to do with allocation of revenue or even division of revenue. The problem emanates from Parliament itself. You remember the impasse we had between the National Assembly and the Senate on matters revenue, division of revenue, that ended up having to be resolved by no other court than the Supreme Court itself. You can see there is this issue of a house or 2 houses that, especially the Senate, that finds itself all the time, and there are not many of them, there are only 67, and if you look at delegations, there are only 47 delegations. I don't understand how so few individuals can be unable to agree on issues that they have been interacting with on a day-to-day basis. I want to believe the Commission on Revenue Allocation did do comprehensive public participation, and I've had no less a person than Oparanya himself saying did submit his opinion on matters of revenue allocation and division of revenue to the Commission on Revenue Allocation. So these are technical individuals who can be able to give a good formula. But when it gets there, and they work as if the Senate behaves as if they have never interacted with these things. They have never seen them. It's the first time they are seeing them, and the world is coming to an end. The country is ending. Counties are going to die within a very short time, courtesy of this formula that is being proposed, whether by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, whether by the committee, their own committee. I think, to me, it is not interference. It is failure by themselves to be able to do what is supposed to be done by them, and selfishness on the parts of some individuals that want to either play politics as themselves or politics for their proxies, and that is that simple.
All right, we all agree that it's a game of interest. It's been very hard to strike a balance, knowing very well that these are senators that have been voted by their own people to represent them. So how best can we still have this argument, Julius, that indeed the senators are just lagging behind on what it is that they're supposed to do? How easy is it to strike a balance in such a scenario where your people are looking up to you to ensure that you pull the best bargain on behalf of them? Yet on this other end, the arguments on ground are that, you just need to come to a truce and get answers to this.
On my end, I would say, one, the senators are not being genuine. They are playing to the public gallery.
Yeah.
That's according to me. Because they are on TV, they want to showcase political games so that their constituents are happy they fought for them. But deep inside, I'm sure any ordinary mind would say development is about people. And the proposal that has been put before them is just okay, realistic, and logical. So I think it's not even about democracy here. They are playing to the public gallery because the session is live, streaming live on TV. So they wouldn't want their people to see that they are the people who said money should not come to their counties. Because you find the proposal there, it's benefiting people more. It's more towards the people on the principle that development is about people. So how you oppose that in the game of numbers, I don't see any logic that can beat that. They will come up with formulas, The reason why I think it will be very difficult to pass again today, you can come up with as many formulas as possible. But at the end of the day, the senators who will defend their people, whose areas stand to gain, will be more than senators whose areas stand to lose.
Right.
As they are using the win-lose. Although it's a win-win, they will see it as they've lost. But the senators who will come from where people are most will be more than the senators who come where people are lesser. So that's a fact in parliament. So if they dare vote against revenue being allocated more to their people, they will look bad. So I think the radical solution, I would have said, is that the head of state should declare that session not live on TV. Then it will be easy to pass a vote because they are playing to public gallery. You can imagine, Linda, we have an agreement with you.
Yeah.
But internally, I don't support you. Then you put me live to vote.
Right.
I'll either be forced to vote for you because you are seeing me, but deep inside, I'm not for you. So that is what is happening. That's why they've not passed it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the 8th one will even be more difficult, according to.
Well,
I would dare say, if they don't pass it today, the Senate should be declared disorderly.
Well, okay, interesting. Let's wait and see. But looping in Charles, then picking up from what Julius has said, it is almost obvious that there's going to be a loser at some point. There's going to be a winner at some point in time, whichever way the Senate decides to go. Could it be what is informing this trouble that we're facing right now?
I think the principle of holding harmless that people would want to pick up on now, by way of telling us that there are counties that are losing. The moment we introduced devolution so many years ago, counties lost, nearly lost, I think, 3 billion shillings annually. Kiambu and other counties. In fact, in total, the counties that lost in terms of what they had to cede, in terms of the opportunity cost, it was about a total of 20 billion. And there was even a discussion around how they go about recovering the same every financial year through provision in terms of maybe equalization. But because of the politics around equalization as a fund, the fact that there are counties which have been disadvantaged for quite a while, then you cannot tag that. So if we are talking about holding hamlets, then I think it is not fair to start discussing that issue around. What we are saying is, if you have 2.5 million people, like Kiambu is, and another has a million people, the likelihood of more people being visiting hospitals in Kiambu is higher than the other where we have a million people. And it's that simple. So when we put a weight of 17% on matters health, and Kiambu, because of his, and these are records that are there, that Kiambu in the last financial year, we have had so many individuals visiting these hospitals, either as inpatients or outpatients. So if Kiambu has to get a bigger share of resources that are meant for health, the 17%, as opposed to Isiolo or Garissa, then it's because there are more people visiting those facilities. And because the basic principle in devolution is that functions are followed by the money. If you have a function of health and your county is seeing so many people, and these are not Kikuyus, these are not Luos, these are Kenyans, because you can see medical services anywhere in this country. So if that happens, you will find Kiambu might get slightly more money on that particular weight, in terms of on that particular basis, in terms of health. But you will find that Elgeyo Marakwet will get more when it comes to agriculture on the 10% that is provided for. If you go to Northeast, you'll find on land mass, because that is also provided for, and the factor on maybe poverty index, you'll find they get more in that particular respect. So it's not as if it's blanket population and that is the end of it. So to me, there is politics in this, and let us not lie to ourselves. I told you the last time we spoke, Article 138 speaks to the fact that to be declared president, you need to get 25% of the votes cast in a minimum of 24 counties, over and above the 50% plus one that you need to get. So what the Murkomens of this world are doing is impress upon the counties of Northeast and the 10 of them that when we come visiting you, remember that we stood with you when there at a time when you are going to lose resources. And that is what's happening. If you look at the faces behind this, how can Murkomen, whose county is gaining, say no? It is simply because we'd rather sacrifice what's happening in Elgeyo Marakwet and ensure there is an easier path for the person that he supports for the presidency in 2022. That person will be able to go to post and say, remember, we could have easily gone the other direction, say, bring the money we sacrifice as respective counties that support me because of you. That is the politics around it. And of course, there are senators that want to be governor. They will have enough time telling and explaining to their people, how did you preside over a process that ended up with us as counties losing money? Their opponents will hit them on that one. So it is politics around 2022 for governors that are senators currently, and for individuals that hold brief for presidential contenders in the year 2022.
Well, pretty much unfortunate to speak, and Kenyans are waiting, Kenyans are watching. In such a scenario where politics seems to be taking center stage hugely, Julius, at what point then do we expect that the senators will put the interest of Kenyans at heart, will put Kenya first in this discussion?
I've said the only way that will work out is switch off live transmission of the session. Then they will vote with their conscience clear.
Then they will surprise us with a totally different thing that we expect.
No, they'll vote it in. What's on the table, they'll vote it in because no one will have seen. Then they'll say the other guys are the ones who. There will be nobody with the evidence who voted for it or not for it. But let me tell you, there's one fact that is happening. With the current proposal as it is, that they are challenging, 19 counties stand to lose, if I'm allowed to use the word lose. 28 counties stand to gain. With the proposal they are proposing, the Sakaja and team, 31 counties will lose. So which is the best for? Is the current one they are challenging is the best for the country way forward.
Murkomen said that on top of the Sakaja proposal, there is also a proposal by, I don't know, is it Mithika Linturi, that is supposed to be, looked into, and then they're going to merge the two to come up with something. Do you suppose that will be what will take center stage today?
There is no hybrid formula that will be agreed upon and that can work better than the one that has been proposed according to, because I've told you 19 counties will lose, if I'm allowed to use the word lose. 28 will gain. Any other formula will raise the counties that will lose to above 19. So right now, the proposal Sakaja had will make 31 counties all lose in the notion or in the perception of fairness. But in such kind of discussion, fairness is not something that should be brought on the table. It should be about justice, what is right and wrong. You see, like if you picture Kayole, Umoja, Madare, picture Nairobi in Eastlands. How many people are they all trying to access Mama Lucy?
Very many.
Now picture putting Mama Lucy, like for example in Lamu, where there are about 300,000 people, for example. The whole of Lamu County has about 400,000 people. The whole of Eastlands has how many people? About 1 million or so. So there is no logic you can bring to beat that in terms of number. And they say data informs policy. So if you don't use data or play otherwise, why did you even have the data in the first place? Census are done so that you are able to bring meaningful development to the people, to take services to the people. So if you dare not use that data to plan for a 5-year future for your country, then what's the need of that data? So they are hiding behind the truth because they are playing to public gallery.
Okay.
And any policy is informed by data, and data is scientific. So for you to challenge it, they better bring up those numbers. It is agreeable. The poverty index could have reduced over by distributing that money. But again, it is reducing at the expense of production of agricultural products, creation of jobs. It's merely putting money on people's hands, and possibly they're not working for it. Then you find like in Northeastern, who are campaigning hard for it, most of those people talking have chosen to build houses in Isili, South B, and in Nairobi instead of building those structures in Northeastern. So why aren't they developing Northeastern but developing Isili? Because they are following where people are.
Do you suppose that was their biggest undoing? The fact that, yes, at some point in time they got this money, but nothing much was done. And at this point, maybe the other counties that have been holding and carrying them up have said enough is enough.
It is the biggest undoing to leadership that does not prioritize. Why am I here? In fact, they should be spending a lot of energy, according to me, not on this formula suggested by a commission on revenue allocation. They should now spend their energy on Equalization Fund. They should look at it, operationalize it, and enhance it as a policy so that it deliberately fills in the gap they're fighting for. It is the Equalization Fund that needs to be used to bring down the poverty index in those areas and fight any perception or realities of marginalization. Not this. This formula is good as it is, and 28 counties are gaining versus 31 counties that will lose if they come up with any other formula. Any other formula will raise the loss from 19 to another number. So should we go that way? No. If Kakamega or Western is producing agriculture, therefore their land is utility land that needs to be funded so that the produce is supplied in Kenya equally, because poverty again is measured by food, the basic needs. So if we are not funding to produce more, then what are we funding then?
Wow. Okay. Well, interesting right there. Now that you spoke about data, it is always, said that an argument is won by data and strong evidence. In this scenario, if the Senate is to approach this without data, do you suppose that they would make wrong decisions, Charles?
First and foremost, remember the advisory that was given the other day by the Supreme Court on when there was a division of revenue in that ended up at the Supreme Court. The first thing the Supreme Court said, much as the recommendations of the CRA are not binding, but they cannot be ignored. So it means whatever information the CRA is bringing to the table must be utilized, because they are technical, they have been able to go through these things, they have done public participation, they have looked at all these things. So the most you can do is play around with what they have come up. There is no way you can ignore data, because again, planning is about data. But let me tell you what, I will insist, and if you look at the projection of what has been happening, look at it critically, you will see there is politics around it.
Yeah.
It started with a recommendation on Kangata, actually a motion to have this deferred, the implementation of the formula deferred for 2 years. So essentially what he was saying is we would have continued with the formula that was there for 2 years, and that would have served to ensure by the time we take this kicks on, maybe you'll have even increased the amount that is going to counties through the proposed BBI 35% minimum share to counties. So counties would not have had. That is the first thing they hit. They worked very fast, and before Kenyans knew what was happening, that motion was defeated on the floor of the House, and it was overwhelmingly defeated, so to say, because they lost by 2 senators. So there was no interest on the part of senators to ensure this formula is in place. What is happening is that politics has now moved from the streets into the Senate, and because that has a way of informing what happens in media houses, what happens in the streets, what happens in towns, in villages. Now the discussion now is about we are being annihilated, these are our friends, these are not our friends. So the politics of 2022 deliberately, but look at it, you ask for time to go out there and come up with consensus. And the first thing that you do as brilliant senators is to call a press conference and say, our side of this team has actually determined that this is the best formula that we can have. You call the press to tell them that, yet you went on the floor of the House and asked for time, actually had a motion discussed on how you can defer debate and voting on this issue so that you can go and get consensus. You'd expect the first thing when they go out there is actually have a meeting internally, no media, come up with a common position, whether to our benefit or not, whether we like it or not. But how do you go out there and the first thing you do is hold press briefing? So it is telling that the interest here is not about resolving this issue. It's not even about those figures, and that's why you're getting surprised every minute you find someone, Senator Malala, whose governor is really key on this money coming in, much as he's leaving, it's his last term. He's saying, give me this money, give the incoming governor this money for the next 2-3 years, for the next 3 years, because that will be able to complete the programs I have. And the other individuals are complaining. Nairobi of all people. How can you tell me you want to wait for Isiolo when the parents of individuals are in Nairobi? Forget about what you're being told. The people who are poorest in this country are in Nairobi. In fact, BBI recognized that, and if you remember, the recommendation on the team was that Nairobi cannot be handled by like any other county. The allocation of revenue amount is not sufficient to take care of Nairobi issues. How can you deny Nairobi an increased amount of resources purely because you're talking about the rest of the country? When the first function of a senator is representation, you are sent by people there so that you can represent them. Representation is about identifying your needs and ensuring you reach out and ensure resources are allocated to mitigate against that need. It is as simple. It is politics by excellence, and there are people who want this to procrastinate to go on for as long as it can, because when we are talking these communities now are rising up saying now we are being annihilated. Let me ask you, my brother has talked about Equalization Fund. That's a provision in the Constitution. The same Senate can increase the amount that goes to that particular fund. And that fund is supposed to take care of infrastructure development, hospitals, electricity supported infrastructure. Why haven't they done that? And then supervise it to the extent that it is able to bring those counties up to par. For 7-8 years, what have they done with that Equalization Fund to ensure the infrastructure in the respective counties that have historical issues are taken care of? Over and above, there's a provision in Article 202 where the national government can give conditional and unconditional grants to counties. What are they doing? Today, the solution would be, let us have this formula, but we have sat down with the president and the executive and we have agreed we can mitigate against these budgetary issues by way of a grant of this nature for the next so long, so that counties do not lose out, especially considering they have planned, they have budgeted for this. So why are people not looking for solutions? Why are we not hearing that kind of talk that we need to come to the table, we have solutions that are workable?
All right. Well, and interestingly, there's something that is coming in new here. Of course, it's more of a breaking news, and it's just news that has just hit editorial section, and they say that in the Nairobi Speaker Beatrice Elachi has tendered her resignation letter. This amid lots and lots of political battles and battles of supremacy at the level of the city Hall. And, well, we will be bringing you details of the same as we proceed. But even before we continue with the conversation of the day, I think it is fair that I allow my guests to weigh in their sentiments on the same. Is it going to bring a truce for Nairobi? What has pushed Elachi to this particular point? Now that you mentioned something to do, with how best we can man Nairobi with, very minimal funds, if at all a different direction should be taken in, ensuring that we share the revenue across different counties. Maji, let's loop you in. This move by Elachi very early in the morning. Right move towards bringing Sanity back to Nairobi?
I would say that is really breaking news. And I'll quickly say such a decision is not only hers, she has consulted, and I'm sure things will just be fine. Maybe it's for the best. The county was becoming chaotic. The county was becoming a bit chaotic, and it was defeating its purpose. And then you realize this is a time where if you have to develop Kenya, you must talk about Nairobi.
Yeah.
So if you're the head of state and you're running a government, you have to look at Nairobi like they look at Washington and New York, like big cities are looked at. So it was becoming chaotic, and there's need for organization. So I want to believe her resignation is informed, and she has consulted widely, and it is in the best interest of Nairobi, probably for her to take a seat back and allow possibly, and to give NMS room to deliver. They want to build hospitals, they want to dig boreholes, they want to do the roads. You can see the president running on street at night trying to monitor the development. The 100 days that was marked, there's real development that we are seeing on the ground. So I think to pave way for proper NMS functions with little noise, with as much little noise as possible, maybe that could have instructed her to resign. Ndio pale kukwena, okay, sasa kelele hakuna. And if you look at how strong Matiang'i spoke after that incident, can tell you her decision is consulted and very much informed, and in the interest of fast or rapid gains on development or the president's agenda.
How can we just celebrate this or say that this is a good move, overlooking what is enshrined in the Constitution, Charles, that, after the governor, there is the deputy governor. After the deputy governor, of course, the speaker can take up the challenge in the event that the governor is in absentia. So in this scenario, we only have a governor who is embattled equally, facing lots of corruption charges and, facing, different or numerous court battles as it stands right now. So is it a lacuna in City Hall? Is there trouble in City Hall? Or again, this is well orchestrated to ensure that NMS takes up Nairobi in totality?
Let me put it this way. NMS cannot take over without the legislature, because the decision that NMS makes must also be supported by legislation, must also be supported by oversight. And so to me, it's not really about NMS taking over. The beauty about this, and that's why it's ironic, is that for the first time now things are happening in Nairobi. You can see activity, you can see roads being done, you can see garbage being collected, you have seen hospitals being launched to support some of those regions. And I'll tell you, Nairobians actually go for treatment in Kiambu. Because if you count the number of facilities in Nairobi, other than the Mama Lucy my brother is talking about, and Bagavi and maybe Pumwani and Mutwini, somewhere in Dagreti. The Kenyatta National Hospital belongs to the national government. So you'll find they don't have requisite facilities. But for the first time, you've seen water, you've seen communities around there enjoying fresh water, clean water. You've seen roads being done, you've seen garbage being done. So it is ironic that the politics is escalating in Nairobi when activities around development is visible, courtesy of NMS. So, and I'm happy that this is happening at a time like when it is not really affecting even revenue collection, because you've seen even KRA and all these other bodies have come in very strongly, and revenue is being managed slightly differently from the way it used to be managed. I think what has happened in Nairobi is not fair, is not right. We need Nairobi should have led by example to showcase a beautiful, great legislature, because it has diversity in terms of individuals that are in the assemblies. We would have seen a governor that leads by example, because he does not come from the most populous community within Nairobi, and he's there, he's at the helm of these things, and he has been given the mandate by millions, hundreds of thousands, millions of people to lead Nairobi. So we have lost that opportunity, and that's the saddest situation today, if you ask me. To me, I passed through there yesterday, and I was shocked that the place is manned by police dogs, policemen, armed individuals. You know, you cannot be barricaded in a building, and you are the speaker, and you draw legitimacy from the people. All sovereign authority belongs to the people. So that is why a judge, when they are sitting out there, they don't have policemen around them. Much as they are ruling on a matter that might determine might have someone going to jail for many years. But you don't see the whole place being surrounded by millions and millions of policemen with dogs, because that they have legitimacy in whatever it is that they're doing, whether in real or perceived. So to me, when you find yourself having to barricade yourself in such a manner, it means rather get out of that situation. Because remember, she's also a mother. She's a relative to many. She has relatives out there. How do you feel when you are a relative? Much as she's senior in this position or the other one, she's all this noise around her. So I think, to me, it is a good decision to get out, and I think you should follow a lot of other people out there that have situations of this nature. Governors too should find it easier to get out, go, organize themselves, work on a better strategy on other issues, or even leave politics altogether. I think that entitlement that it has to be you, it is you. And that I was elected, people gave me this mandate. Remember, the moment you get elected, 20 minutes later, you'll find 20% of the people regretting why they elected you in the first instance. So, drawing legitimacy from what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in terms of how you were elected by millions of people, it might be true to the extent that we don't have figures to support the argument that maybe you have lost that legitimacy. But you should realize by the things that are happening around you, you have signed up, seeded quite a number of functions, and the functions are being taken care of. Then you continue stretching. So when this remove CEC, this chief officer, all those activities around Nairobi are become an embarrassment to Nairobi.
And while we celebrate that the functions are being taken care of, Majimaji, are you confident that we are not going to stare at a constitutional crisis or a crisis in Nairobi anytime in the future, looking at the trajectory and the unfortunate occurrences that are bedeviling Mike Sonko?
It looks like a constitutional crisis. Yes, that can happen. But I want to believe what they signed covers the NMS in its operations, such that the county was left with what they're supposed to do, not unless they want to get into what NMS is supposed to do. So I think NMS is covered. So I don't foresee quite a crisis. And, laws are made to benefit the people. Yeah? So if Nairobi residents are going to approve of what NMS is doing, that is law.
I think maybe let me just come in on that issue of the constitution and the gravity of the situation. It is true. In the event Sonko is not there, there's going to be a constitutional crisis because we do not have a deputy governor who will naturally take over, and we don't have a speaker to organize for elections for the seat of governor and deputy governor in the event that happens. But the beauty about the NMS is that it is taking up a better role. It's actually acting better than what a deputy governor would be doing at the moment when we have a governor. So much as that is a fact, and on that basis alone, I think Nairobians can decide to remove someone. The fact that she has failed to provide for that, to fill up that position all this time, and the fact that can create a constitutional crisis at a time like now, I think that those are sufficient grounds to and the fact that even the speaker is resigning. If people collect signatures and give them to the president, there is a likelihood the whole county government can be suspended, including the MCAs and the executive itself. That is the reality. So to me, what needs to happen now is I think people need to style up and look at Nairobi seriously, look at what Nairobi is to Kenyans. It's not just about you as an individual, and do the right thing. It takes just a pen and paper to appoint a deputy governor, and that person goes to the assembly and through the process, because there is a process on how that can happen even when the substantive speaker is not there. And we have that position filled, so that even in the minds of the average people out there that are thinking Nairobi is not going well because of the position of deputy governor, it gets satisfied, and it does not matter who. Sonko has that mandate. He can decide to become the deputy governor today or tomorrow, and that is something he has. It's a constitutional issue, and there is nothing anybody can do. So to ease the mind of Nairobians in general and Kenyans in general, can't he just do that? Because the other issues are going on, development is happening, and then if he can slow down on the issues he has with the NMS, even remove. I know he has gone for more in terms of the dispute he has with the NMS and the national government, rather, and I think it's not the Council of Governors, not from the committee.
Okay,
those are things, and so that he can. Both teams can focus. And remember, Sonko takes constitutional responsibility over everything that happens as the governor of Nairobi. So what he should have been doing is actually inspecting the projects like the president is doing, even the ones that are being done by the NMS. Because at the end of the day, he holds the constitutional responsibility of the same. Much as the functions have been ceded, the funds have been given, he still holds that responsibility. So to me, it is not that hard. What you should have done is played a better game, inspected those projects. If you want to own them by saying, the person I gave this job is doing a good job. You don't want to give someone a role to play and then you want to act as if you're the one who's playing it. But you can take credit for the same.
All right, and speaking of which, John, that is the Deputy Speaker, John Kamangu, has been elected to take over as the acting Speaker as it stands right now. But even before we close this subject, Majimaji, Helachi cites threats as the key reason as to why she has decided to step aside or decided to resign. Sincerely, at this time and age, we still are playing politics of intolerance, politics of threats, politics of firing shots, politics of being told keep silent even when ill is happening. And we're not trying to say that ill was happening in Nairobi and Elachi was told to keep silent, but why should we be talking of politics of threats at this time?
Allow me also to look at it from all sides. In politics, kuna vitu mingi sana. Tusidanganyane, give it up to Sonko. Sonko pia ni political animal. Ndio utoke MP, uingie senator, uingie governor, ukae bila deputy na usurvive paka saa hii, urub shoulders na head of state, ucheze venye unacheza. He's also a political animal. So tusimuandarate. Maybe inaweza kuwa pia yeye ana push mambo yake. It could be the one pushing buttons at the same time for the sake of his survival. Kumbuka, days, weeks before that he's been complaining, my roles are being taken, I've worked. He has released PR videos showcasing what he's done for Nairobi. He wants to claim his governorship. So, as much as we could look at it that maybe the government is trying to create order in the city, pia kuangalia hii side, Sonko ni political animal. Anaweza kuwa anacheza yake. Niko na wacha tusukume mpaka mwisho. Let's push it to the end and see who's the governor. Maybe, I'm just saying maybe.
So should Badi be worried? Unasema worried Badi aanze kutetemeka ama?
Sio hivyo. Inaweza kuwa pia yeye ana operate, ana control. Kilugha mtaa. Inaweza kuwa pia Sonko ana control kivyake toka kwa hiyo kiti.
All right. Okay, well, interestingly, let's cross over and listen in briefly on what has culminated or what has played out as we come up to wind up on the expectations of the Senate today.
Tender my resignation to His Excellency the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. And I'll just read what I wrote at night to my President. Sir, it gives me great 2017 when we finished the elections to date. We have seen tremendous change, but also challenges. With the coming in of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, I believe Nairobi will transform to a better capital city. Sir, notwithstanding, for the last few days, We have seen lots of conflict and even life-threatening incidents. I humbly tender my resignation, and for continuity of the institution, I appoint my deputy pursuant to the law and the new act, the Honorable Speaker John Kamangu, who is the Deputy Speaker, to take over as the acting Speaker and also the Chairperson of the Nairobi County Service Board as the Assembly prepares to recruit a new Speaker. I also leave the Assembly well prepared, and I know we are in court, but the orders were given and Jacob Welle was told to step aside. We had Ada Onyango. All of them are in court, and therefore they were told to step aside until the case is over on the 16th of October. And I therefore appoint the acting clerk who has been there, Ms. Pauline Okuku, to continue serving as the acting clerk, but who is also the deputy clerk administration to support the Honorable John Kamangu during this period.
Well, that clip right there, courtesy of Citizen TV. Thank you so much. And of course, as we come back to wind up, of course, it's a story that we'll be following up, and we'll certainly give you more updates as and when they reach the editorial desk. But coming back to the gentlemen of the day, that is Julius Owino and Charles Munyue, as we get to wind up on our expectations on what Senate will proceed to give us. Was looking at this report that was coming out, trying to paint a picture of what counties are rich in comparison to others. And while we were having the newspaper review in the morning, my guest of the day thought it was not fair and wise for us to have such a conversation or such a report to come out at this point in time. And, painting a picture of, counties that are rich, counties that are better than the others. And we know very well that we've had this conversation that, some counties feel like they are rich and they're making so much money. Hence, it would be unfair for them to be out there dishing out what it is that they should enjoy to the rest of the counties that are struggling to survive. So would it be wise to have this conversation at this particular time where we're talking about counties that are rich? We're talking about Kirinyaga, Meru, Nyeri as counties that are rich in comparison to the others that are considered to be marginalized. Any of you can pick it.
Let me put it this way. Right. Are you telling me there are no poor people in Kirinyaga? Are you telling me there are no poor people in Nairobi? Because Nairobi is the richest county, I think, according to the... So are you telling me there are no poor people in Nairobi, in all honesty? Are you telling me there are no people that go to hospitals in Nairobi? There are no people that require food on a day-to-day basis that cannot afford that food? People, the infrastructure levels in this... I think what must happen, we cannot pick one issue and run with it on issues of poverty. There is more to a county than poverty, the poverty index. And that's why we are saying you don't kill what you have in the name of supporting what you need to support to upgrade to where you are supposed to be. And that is why it is supposed to be fair. There is an equal share amount that is shared equally for all counties, and everything else is built on now what you have. The parameters that are there. Even land size is provided for, because the realization is there are counties to get a service, you need to travel quite some distance. It is only that we need to harmonize so that it is not imbalanced in such a way that it's affecting even those counties that are so-called rich counties. And I think that's also a myth that needs to be broken. When we talk about rich simply because we put together maybe the per capita income or for a county, and then you tell us this county is richer than the other one. Per capita productivity, tell us this county is lazier than the other one. I think that information, if you use it selectively, you don't support it with other issues, you'll find yourself making a determination and a decision that is premised on the wrong things. So to me, what's happened is that moving into the future, what the Senate must do is seek solutions, and the solutions are there. Let them pass the formula as given by the committee, which formula is a CIRA formula, by the way, that was amended slightly Let them pass that one. Then let them give a solution through what my brother said, the Article 204 on equalization. That is a provision that they can very quickly work around. And let them also consult with the national government so that the national government can help through Article 202 on funds on grants that can be given conditional and unconditional, so that in the event a county is losing or quote unquote losing, they can be able to be supported to grow. But the talk about rich counties, poor counties is neither here nor there, and I think the timing is off. I wouldn't know why that would be, especially the reporting around it, because the report could be there, but the reporting around now just creates a completely different picture from what it should be creating.
Linda, I want to appreciate the report.
Yeah.
And me, I believe in numbers. You see, the report says that, for example, Nairobi has about 4 million people, as the richest county. And again, it says the 16% are poor, for example.
Right.
So when you do 16% of 4 million, that's about 650,000 per se, yeah? So 650,000 people are poor in Nairobi. So if you look at, for example, Bungoma, the report says has about 1.5 million people, yeah? And then they say 35% are poor. Now if you do 35% of 1.5 million, is about 500,000 people. So the fact is there are more people in Nairobi than in Bungoma. So you need to spend money to improve lives of the people of the 650 and spend a little bit to improve the lives of the people in Bungoma in relation to what they produce. Yani for example, wacha nibonge na maodi, for example, yani wale wananchi wa kawaida. Hivi liko hivi. Wanasema hivi, family moja, yani we ni hazi, sawa? Uko na bibi wawili, for example. Bibi mmoja ana watoto 5. Bibi mmoja ana mtoto mmoja. Na huyu bibi ana mtoto mmoja kwa sababu sijui ya nini yeye ni mgeni, nini ako kwa nyumba kubwa. Ya, anaishi Nairobi ama Garissa, for example. Na huyu bibi mwingine ana watoto 5 na anaishi kwa nyumba ndogo or even the same. Wewe kama bwana umebai unga bel moja. How will you distribute this wheat maize flour kwa hizi mafamili mbili? Definitely pale kuna watoto 5 utaweka unga packet 5. Pale kuna watoto 3 utaweka unga packet 3. So that the basic thing that inafaa kule umesatisfy. Sasa hii competition ya huyu anataka gari huyu pia kuwe na gari is immaterial. Now that's hiyo ni kwa bidii yako. Lakini kununua nguo, chakula, hewa, kupumua, afya inafaa iende na namba ya watu.
Okay.
For your dreams and desires, ndoto zako, wacha watu wabishane. Unaelewa? Hivyo ndio hiyo belief. So, however much Senate wakae chini, Sakaja kuja na formula, sijui Senator gani akuja na formula, Markuma anakuja na formula yake, akuja na hybrid. At the end of the day, if you have 2 wives and one has 5 children and the other one 2 children, this one will go with 5 packets of unga, this one will go with 2 packets of unga. Hiyo ndio development, hiyo ndio maendeleo. And then pia inafaa waangalie 209, the last census. Population grow to 2019. So definitely these counties with more people need more money. Otherwise, we'll be working backwards.
These counties with more people also are counties that have people who have come from different counties coming to these people, for instance.
Exactly. So it's not that if you enrich Kiambu, you're enriching Kikuyus. If you enrich Kisumu, you're enriching Luos. And if you enrich Kakamega, you're enriching Luyas. If you are the head of state and you're running the government, you look at it as you're enriching people, improving lives of people.
Oh, yeah?
You're improving lives of people in this place because there are more people in this place.
There's more than that on the CRA, proposal where they look at the population factor, like you rightfully put it, equal share factor, and poverty factor, land area factor, fiscal effort, and basis on development factor. These key things you say should be incorporated.
And after people, what takes number 2 is agriculture. because that is the bedrock of the country. We need food. Food security is addressed by farming and agriculture. So where are people practicing agriculture for production for the country? Yeah, so you need to help them farm better.
Well, it's a tongue twist, and it's indeed a delicate balance to, of course, strike. Because even when you bring that analogy of family and all that, sometimes utaambiwa bibi ambaye anaishi Nairobi maybe akona kazi and she can come in handy to fend for the children. Na ule ako nyumbani hana kazi. There are a lot of activities or a lot of conversations revolving around this. But gentlemen, as we get to wind up, I think we all are eagerly waiting to see what will play out. In 30 seconds, what will be your message to the Kenyans as we await for this particular session of the day moving on? Because again, this has not just divided the leaders, but has equally divided the people. And as CRA would say, obviously the leaders are divided on political lines, so applies to the people, and it is only fair that they are allowed to come in and give or strike a balance. Charles, in 30 seconds as we wind up.
I think I need to talk to each respective Kenyan, whichever county they are domiciled in. The question you should ask yourself, is your senator representing your views? When you are in Nairobi and your senator is saying that they cannot support a formula that gives you more money, purely because in his wisdom he believes there is a county out there that is losing, that he needs to represent, yet he was sent to that Senate by you Nairobians. If you're in Elgeyo Marakwet, if you're in Kakamega, if you're in Kiambu, your interest should be the road that you can see next to you. It should be the water that you need right next to you. It is not about what is happening in Isiolo to a large extent. It doesn't matter how patriotic we want to be. The bottom line is, we were told we are electing an individual to represent us, to oversight our issues, and to make laws. So if that person first and foremost is failing in his cardinal responsibility of making an allocation of revenue law, then that person is the wrong person. If that person fails in representing you by way of not ensuring resources come to you, and he gets the resources, he said, wait a minute, I am employed by all Kenyans, not by Nairobians only, not by Kenyans from Kakamega. I want to see Kenya because I have other plans. Then that person is failing you. Talk to your senators. Let them respect the fact that CRA is a constitutional commission, and in the wisdom of the commissioners, after due diligence, after going through due public participation, they came up with this formula that has been amended slightly by the committee. It is not dramatically changed. So why can that senator of yours approve this formula? And then for the senators, what is so heavy about you going out there, looking at the provisions of the Constitution and mitigating against these so-called losses that you are highlighting, that are not really losses, about resources going where the functions are? Why don't you use the provisions that are there in 204 and 202 to be able to mitigate against that, instead of creating a crisis that should not be there, crisis that is premised on nothing, so to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Charles. Majimaji.
Yes, I would say, first of all, Linda, thank you for the opportunity to speak to Kenyans, and
so much.
Just to give our opinion about what we think is logical. I'll say this to Kenyans: numbers don't lie. Na ni uchungu sana kusikia kukosa hata one bob, but ujue ni ndugu yako anaishi hizi area. So hii bila imanishi ni win-win, kwa sababu maendeleo ni kuhusu watu. Maendeleo sio kuhusu gari na trailer, ngamia ama ng'ombe. Maendeleo ni kuhusu watu. Sasa hii pesa ni ya kuhakikisha mahospitali yametosha mahali kuna watu wengi. Mahali kuna watu 1,000 inafaa na hospitali inaitosha. Mahali kuna watu 100,000 inafaa na hospitali 2 ama 3. Mahali kuna watu 1,000 inafaa na shule moja. Mahali kuna watu 100,000 inafaa na mashule kama 10. Hiyo ndio hii bill inajaribu kuleta, usawa kulingana na service delivery, usawa kulingana na haki yako. Tutaweka koti wapi? Tutaweka hospitali wapi? Tutaweka barabara wapi? Sasa naomba maseneta wapitishe, lakini kitu inafaa wapiganie immediately after. Kuna kitu inaitwa Equalization Fund. Sasa hapo ndo waangalie hii fund kwa marginalized community. Wangependa nini nafaa iwekwe pale. For example, sasa Turkana ina watu chache. Oil, ile mafuta ikitoka pale baada ya miaka 10 na itoke vizuri, Turkana itakuwa na watu wengi kushinda wale watu wa Kakamega ama Bungoma. Mtasema will senators go back to the house and say, now that Turkana has more people, let's change this formula? The best formula that will stand the test of time is based on people. Sasa senators naomba ipitishe. Na kama sio hivyo, President, I am your incognito advisor. Declare the Senate disorderly if they don't pass any bill today. Declare it disorderly. Be like the North Korean president and bring law and order.
Wow.
That is the work of the head of a state, to bring law. Because counties will not get money.
Gentlemen, you don't have time to debate on that.
Not debating, I'm just saying my brother should just petition the Chief Justice if we on this basis that the Senate has failed, and the Chief Justice will advise the President to dissolve Parliament, the Senate. That is the process. So now do a petition. But actually,
alete badi mwingine hapo kwa Senate.
All right, well, interestingly, we wait to see what will play out, and yes, we cross fingers for the best all the same. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Charles Munyui and Julius Owino alias Maji. It was great having you this morning. Now let me cross over to the next studio as we discuss matters, relationships. How do you get to balance, your goals and couple goals? In most cases, I can guarantee you that there are very many people out here who struggle with the same, because you do not want to offend your partner in any way. But equally, you have dreams, you have goals as an individual. So how do you strike that balance after this short break? have with your partner, culminates from one simple thing, the fact that you all want different things. How do you get to strike a balance and ensure that you have a peaceful home or a peaceful relationship? So this morning, we want to take a look at a crucial matter that will culminate in every other single relationship, because at a point in time you will have your own respective goals that are different from the goals of your spouse, and we want to know, how do you get to strike a balance so that moving forward you do not lose you for the sake of the relationship, and moving forward you do not lose the relationship just because you're stuck by the fact that you have your goals, you have your interests, and you will abide by that. Joining me this morning for this candid discussion is Nancy Rehab, who's a psychologist, and Sky V. Ken, who's an author, a speaker, and a trainer, to expound some more on this. Just get to tell us what it is that they think we should do on a specialty ground to ensure that we get to strike a balance between the goals that we have as partners and also the goals that we have as individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
You well?
Good morning, Linda.
Good morning. Good to have you.
Thank you.
And it's always a hard one to strike. And in most cases, especially the ladies, Nancy, I'm sure you'll agree to it, that most of the times you're told, you know what? You equally have a space. You can go out there and shine. But you find that most ladies, once they get married, they tend to look more at the interests of the families. Some of them literally lose their jobs in the name of, I'll sit down, wait for the man to provide and take care of the family. And they end up being devastated over time.
True. Because most of the time, what a lady brings in a marriage is expectation of achieving without doing anything. Because there's this saying that what the man has is ours and what I have is mine, which is very misleading.
So, yes, of course, coming to this scenario, then how do you come to that point where you are able to strike a balance? And I think that is what will inform this conversation. And, it starts from that point of a relationship, Sky V. Ken, that time that you're quoting is when now you sit down and on the table you place what your interests are, you place what it is that you want to achieve in future, and then moving forward, you look at to see whether your partner is in agreement to what are your interests. At what point then should we say that, yes, this conversation should be held, especially for couples who are looking to get married?
I think at the Thank you.
Yes, Kaivi, proceed.
What I have heard out here is that people fall in love, which is not bad, but one thing that I'm sure of is that people don't fall into relationships. I think for a relationship, you just have to sit down, look at what your goals are, just as you've said, and look at what the other partner is able to help you achieve. So the conversation now becomes, what are you bringing on the table? This is who I am, and this is who you are. Are we able to complement each other so that at the end of it all, it's not one benefiting from the other alone? Both of us are benefiting from each other and growing each other. So the very first time you guys are beginning the conversation of getting into a relationship, it becomes very important that you agree that this is who I am, these are the goals I have in life, and this is where you're going to help me and complement me. And also on the other side, this is who I am, this is what I'm trying to do, and this is what you can help me achieve.
All right.
So the beginning of the relationship,
this
conversation be.
At the beginning of the relationship, that is very, very crucial. And coming to you, Nancy, you are a psychologist, and I'm sure you probably have had sessions with people who are in a relationship, and they argue that sometimes it's very hard, and you probably hear a lady or a man saying that, he wants me to take this direction, she wants me to take this direction, which I do not think is the right thing to do. Are there times when compromise is necessary? Are there times when compromise is the most important thing to salvage a relationship?
I think basically in a relationship, compromise is what makes it work. Because you come with your ideas, with your expectations, and then you realize, hey, this thing can't work like that. So you have to sit down and actually go through what you are expecting. Your expectations are very key, knowing them, and self-awareness. So if you're not self-aware, what you're bringing on the table will not be helpful. It will not be healthy.
So you need to know, why am I in this relationship? And then you also need to know, what can I compromise on, and what can I say no to and can never compromise about. So basically, when we go into a relationship, we go with this ideal that it has to work in a certain way. And that's why most of the time it fails, because if you don't compromise, if you don't see things as they are, then really you are not on the same page.
Right.
Because you might think that, yeah, this guy has a lot of money. In the real sense, he was just trying to impress you during the courting part of the relationship. And then when reality hits, he's not as rich as he is. And maybe you got into the relationship because of the car he has, because of the house you saw. So those are some of the things that you need to sit down and compromise on, your expectations.
Okay, at an early stage, sky vacant, and you sit down with your partner and they tell you, you know what, these are my plans for the future, this is what I want to achieve. In most cases, you find that men are a little bit rigid with what it is that they want to achieve. And that leaves the woman with no option, but in most cases, to give up. And on very few occurrences where you will hear that, oh, I have had to lose my job because of my woman. We probably are working in the same vicinity and we're told no dating in the office, so I had to step out or leave the job just because of her. So when you're having these conversations and you realize that, your dreams are worlds apart, your desires are worlds apart, do you then decide that, okay, well, this relationship is not going to work? Maybe we should call it quits? Or there are ways that you can work out stuff and ensure that every other person gets a balanced, approach and a balanced, resolution to what would be their issue?
Sometimes it is to compromise. You realize that sometimes, just as the example you've given us, sometimes when a woman comes into the relationship, they have all these expectations that my boyfriend is going to take me out, my man is going to spoil me, my man is going to do all these things. So if the circumstances under which we are getting into this relationship I have to quit my job, then you realize you leave me at a very hot space where I have compromised my job, I'm not working, and then on the other end you're sitting waiting for me to provide all these things and to do all these things for you. So I believe at the beginning of the conversation, also expectations need to be put in place and to be talked over, because they are not universal. You realize there are ladies who desire to go eat at Java or these other big places, and there are others who are like, just buy me a packet of milk and a donut somewhere, I'll be fine. So let's not assume things when we are getting into a relationship. Let me get to know who you are, what drives you, what makes you happy, so that I'm not taking you for a road drive when you desire to fly, because no matter how much fuel I spend on the road, it's not going to help you. It's not going to make you happy as long as you're not there. So these expectations need to be balanced.
All right. Okay. What are the dangers of getting into a relationship? Sometimes you look at it and you think, well, I want this to be long-term, and you fail to sit down to have conversations on what your goals are, on what your interests are. What are the dangers of the same? Because like you rightfully put it, Rahab, at some point in time, sometimes you're even pushed to that point where you have to lie just to impress. So what are the dangers of such scenarios?
I think it's important for people to know you have to be real when you're in a relationship. Because when the other person realizes that you are not real, you are faking it, it's such a turn off. And in most cases, it doesn't really work. And in most cases, ladies are the ones who are, the victims of all this, because they want to impress. You find that someone is really even trying to walk in shoes they can't to just impress this guy, and maybe he just liked your smile, something like that. So it's important to know that the real you is what is expected in a relationship. Some people even complain, even in a situation that I took this lady out and I bought a dinner that was very expensive, and she just touched it, and you didn't give him value for it, but you didn't even attempt to eat, such things. things because, and you know you're hungry, but you don't want to eat in front of this guy.
But let's just be honest. Let's be honest, Rahab. And I think Sky Weekend will come in also on this. Are there times that, you know, like honestly, it is necessary to just pull a lie? It is necessary to pretend. I mean, you don't want to be invited for a date day one and you're all there gulping almost everything. And Sky V will tell you that for men, it is only fair that sometimes you tell her some lies, so at least she gets into that box, or so to speak. Sky V.
It is okay.
Oh well, before you come to wind up.
You're putting me at a very hot spot because when it comes to lying, I'm
I just want us to be honest.
So I think there are times when you have to pull a few strings here and there. Sometimes because you even don't understand who you are with, but there's only one thing you know they love, and probably you're not able to give it in full. So sometimes you might try to impress at that moment so that you get to know them even the more. I look at this like a book we used to study, primary mathematics. I don't know whether that was a name, and there was a staircase, and there were two. So I think you begin somewhere, and then as you go up, you get to understand more.
Yeah.
For this instance, you are at a spot and you're trying to share a meal. Now, if you're hungry, you're hungry. My friend, eat.
Oh.
You might not get that opportunity again.
Okay.
So don't hide under, trying to make people happy. If you're hungry, just eat, because you know what? You're going to get hungry again. There's a time that you're going to get hungry again. So you won't keep the lie for long. It's just going to be, it's going to come out and you're going to be known for who you are.
You know, I plead guilty because honestly, there are numerous times where I have had to, just play that lie and act like I'm so full and literally my stomach is rumbling. So coming to you, Rahab, again, as you expound some more on this one, there are likelihoods that, as you pretend, as you act good, as you try to impress, you will even lose this person just because you were never honest from the word go.
I think so, because most of the time people are looking for honesty, especially when you're looking for someone to settle down with,
Yeah.
And now you get this girl who can't even eat. What you need to learn is etiquette. How do I eat and eat properly and not embarrass myself? That is the basic in any relationship. Even when you're hanging out with a friend, you don't want someone who's eating and, doing all these things all over. Can't use a fork and a knife, or even someone who's honest enough to say, I can't do this, so I use my hands, And when you're exposed enough, you know that it doesn't really matter what you're using to eat. It's how you eat it. Are you talking with your mouth full? Are you doing all this disgusting thing, And maybe, you see, these days, even interviews, you're invited for lunch. And they want to see how you behave around, food, around people, and how you socialize,
Yeah.
So people need to know this is the basic, so that when you're taken out, Linda, you will not waste that lunch that is very expensive. And then you go back to the house and like, oh man, that feeling is not a good one.
Right.
So basically, and then get to know who is this that is taking out. Is this someone who's judging me by what I'm eating or such things? Because a nice person will make you feel free.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to enjoy your lunch. So if you're not feeling free, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So it's also telling you, it's like you're getting feedback from yourself that you're not comfortable around this person.
All right.
Yes.
Well, now after you have sat down as a couple and you have discussed your interests, Sky V Ken, then what way forward, especially at this point when you realize that you have totally different interests, that you have totally different goals, but you still are happy with each other and you'd want to have a life together?
Now, with being happy, you realize that happiness is not what is going to maintain the marriage. Again, I'm not from experience, but from what I have seen out here. People are happy for the first few years, but when you can't complement each other, when you can't achieve nothing at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a problem. And now you realize you're going to stay with this person for the rest of your life. Now, the rest of your life is scary. Bearing in mind that the only thing you're bringing to the table, the only thing you're achieving together is happiness. There's when children come, it's not going to be about happiness. They need to go to school. They need to go to good schools. They need to have things going around them. And you can't provide all these things with happiness alone. So I don't think happiness is the real deal for a marriage or a relationship to be able to continue for long. I think these interests, these goals need to be matched and see how we can be able to help each other achieve something at the end of the day.
So how then you get to strike a balance, Rahab, when we are having these conversations and finally you agree that yes, you have different goals, but these goals are of importance to, individuals based on what it is that they want to achieve in life. So how do you ensure that you strike a balance, that this in any way should not come in to alter the relationship that you still, that you have or that you hold with high regards?
I think basically you should learn to communicate with each other or to each other, because when you're lacking something, it's good to tell your partner, I don't have this, I can't afford this, and not feel shy about it,
Yeah.
And maybe this person wants you to move to a certain neighborhood and they don't know that you cannot afford. So it's good to lay everything on the table and know who does what. So communication is very, very paramount. And I always advise people to go for premarital counseling, because you're able to even set goals, together as a couple. And you are different from people who just get married. And if it's, let's say for like church marriages, the priest or the pastor will insist on it, because you get to know each other in therapy.
Yeah.
But if you just hop into marriage without that, you're not prepared enough, because as they say, marriage is not a bed of roses. It's not just, smiling and being happy, as my colleague said.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is hardship that needs a lot of hard work. You need to work on it together. And working on it together will mean that you guys will have to be ready and open for any changes that come in. So one might lose a job. How are you ready to cope with that? Any changes, like even the illness that people are having, the COVID situation, how are people dealing with it? And you're finding that there are so many conflicts because people are not ready for that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Now, this scenario is something that, like I started by saying, most of the families will have to go through. And I have seen in most cases, as a young girl, and you're looking for a partner, or a young man and you're looking for a partner, a lifetime partner for that matter, you tend to look around where it is that you are. For instance, if it's in journalism, like for me, or in the media industry, you tend to look around the media industry with an assumption that this is a person who would come in to understand you. Are there likelihoods that getting a partner or getting a person who has the same lifetime goals with you, or, almost similar goals, would come in handy to ensure that you have, proper coexistence? Because most of the times I've seen people literally dropping, this is not the ideal one. My ideal one is one that I work close to, or my ideal one is the one that, works in the same industry that I do. So they will literally drop all the other women around or all the other men around in search for this one that they consider ideal. Is there a good move, Skyviken?
Right. Allow me to say this. When I look at what I do, it involves a lot of talking. I love to talk and doing a lot of trainings out here.
Yeah.
And so at some point I thought, I don't want a lady in my life, very quiet and cannot be able to speak in any forum, or when I'm invited to speak in this place and I'm very busy. I need somebody I can be able to send to represent the company or to represent us. So sometimes I think having people who are affiliated the same or have the same strengths is also very important. People who are journalists, I don't know, in journalism, maybe this might not work. You might not miss a show and, your better half comes in because we are going to wonder what in the world is happening.
Yeah.
But I think having people or having a person around you who can complement what you do and has the same strengths as you really goes a long way to be able to achieve a lot at the end of the day. And also they will be able to understand the challenges that you go. For example, if I go out here and I'm doing a training and the training has a lot of, has more ladies than men, and there are pictures being taken, then I come home. I don't want to come home to somebody who is going to judge me and ask me, why are you training ladies alone? Why was this lady so smiling when you were talking about this? You know, sometimes when you have somebody who understands the field that you are in, you're able to deal with things a bit easier rather than somebody who completely has no idea what exactly you're trying to tell them, but they don't understand. I think that might solve a lot of things, just having somebody who completely understands the field that you are in and what you do.
All right, that's amazing. And now that you talk of a scenario where you need to be complemented by your partner, as I loop in Rehab, how do you get to complement your partner in as much as maybe you're not in the same field, in as much as you maybe, you know, your dreams are worlds apart for a better coexistence?
I think the basic is you get to communicate about what you do.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if your partner is in security or whatever area they are in, you know what they do, what it entails, and everything they do, so that when you see them hanging around some ladies, you're not feeling insecure. Or let's say journalism, and let's say your co-anchor is all there, you know, all over you, and your partner is there watching, you know, or how does it go around all that? So he needs to understand that there has to be chemistry on screen or something like that, so that it works well for the viewers and all that. So the basics of what you do or whatever kind of job you are in should be understood well by your partner. And that is all in the communication part of it, when you open communication. And you have to learn to communicate about what you're feeling, like I did not like this, I did not do this, without accusing the other person. You know, I was not comfortable with this, I don't like the way that lady hangs around you, and you say you talk about your feelings and tackle the issue. Because if you don't do that, you'll just pile bitterness, and then eventually it will affect the whole marriage in a way.
Right. And would it be too... Skyvi, you want to say something? All right, this is my question. Would it be too much to get involved in understanding what it is that your partner does, understanding their dreams, coming in handy to come and help, you know, and advice where necessary? Is it too much, or it is helpful in a scenario where you need to strike that balance? Skyvi.
Let Nancy answer that. I didn't get it very well.
All right. Okay, thank you. I think basically it's very, very, very important to understand what your partner does, because it will just build insecurities if you don't. Let's say someone is like some producer who hangs around with very, very beautiful anchors or something like that. Let me give an example of journalism, Linda.
Yes.
And then your lady is just there watching, you know, or even maybe you've gone out and she's seen these ladies hanging around this guy, and you're like, you feel very insecure.
Yeah.
But once you reassure your partner that this is work, this is what we do, and I still come back home to you, they'll feel better about themselves. You know, it can even crush one's esteem if you don't understand what your partner does, you know, and what it entails. And at the end of the day, you need to keep reassuring your partner, no matter how solid the marriage is. Reassurance, I think, is part of it, you know. Yeah. And ensuring that this lady or this gentleman knows that they are your number one priority in anything. In any case, you're the person that they chose to settle down with.
All right, so what other ways can you deal with the insecurities, Skyvi? Because literally, if there has to be a reason as to why people fight on their interests and goals, then number one is insecurity. Number two is, of course, the money that people bring on board, and finances will always bring troubles that I'm sure you can attest to. So how do you fight your insecurities? How do you deal with them to ensure that at least you're able to balance and you do not find the other partner uncomfortable with the goals of the other?
Right. I think one of the values that is very important in a relationship is honesty. I need to be completely honest with you. This is what I do, and this is what my day is like. If I'm in the journalism world, I'm going to meet pretty people out here, and sometimes there will be pictures being taken. So if you ever see a picture of me trending anywhere, it's not like I have anything going on. It's just like doing their job, and they need to be paid. The second thing, insurance. I don't believe that when somebody is insecure, it's just because they are weak. sometimes insecurities come because people really love you. So one way to be able to fight insecurity is one, to understand that the other partner loves you. And the reason they keep bringing these things up is not because they wish the worst for you or they want you to live in an island, just that they really love you. So it's important that you keep assuring your partner that in as much as I'm in this environment, as much as I'm in these fields, I really love you, and I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to get food for the family.
All right. There are times when there's need to make crucial decisions, especially maybe in one person's, goal and future and plans and jobs. There are times when you're told, you know what, I want to go and study abroad. I want to further my education. I've gotten this scholarship. I have been, transferred to a different county or to a different country in my job. At this point, then you need to make a very crucial decision. Yes, you love what it is that you're doing, but there's also family. There's also a relationship. There's also this person that you love so much. Nancy, how do you strike this balance?
I think we'll start. Let me start with you've gotten a scholarship to go abroad. You first have to come and lay it on the table and you discuss it as a couple, because what is it bringing in for the family? Is it worth it? And if let's say it's 2 years, there's 10 weeks, there's all that, what's the duration of this scholarship, and while you are at it, how are we going to support us as a family, because sometimes you can get that scholarship that comes with a lot of other good stuff that will also make you grow as a couple.
Yeah.
So their sacrifice is also very, very, very paramount. And then there are others that you'll see that it's not a value addition, so that when you can say, no, thank you. But then the decision has to come after discussion as a couple and see what works for you. For the transfer bit, what would work? Moving as a family, which most of the time is very, very important, especially when there are babies around.
Yeah.
Or you work from the county where it's working for you and I in a different county, and then what time do we create as a couple to be our time? I think that is also very, very important. So but basically it goes back to communication, and you understand in marriage there's a lot of sacrifices. So you won't live with a person or another, another person, like the way you used to do when you were single. You were making a decision like that, and you would, if it's I have this scholarship, I'm going to London, and yes, approved, and off you go. There's another person here who needs to be reassured, who needs to know what will work for you as a couple. Are you still a couple when you're away, or what would happen? And then now you can decide whether to take up the opportunity or to just say no, and it's given to someone else who can.
And also such scenarios, Skyvi, then you'll find a situation where you have to shelve your interests first so that the interests of your partner can be projected. For instance, as a family, you see that this lady wants to go and study this, and this would require lots and lots of amounts of money. So that means you might not be able to, venture into the project that you wished to as the husband or as the boyfriend or as the fiancé. So in such a scenario, how do you get the courage amid, all these communications that would be in between? How are you able as a person to, first of all, shelve your interests for the sake of the interests of your partner?
Now, looking at it from the point where people are not married, people say love is blind, but I don't think it should be blind for the rest of your life. Sometimes you need to love somebody enough to let them go when the interests are not the same. Marriage is not a success. Not like when we get married, we are now in this bed of roses, now we've achieved everything in life. So if you're not married and you have to really compromise and really change who you are in a bid to get to get this thing to work, I don't think that is in the right context. Because at the end of the day, marriage should not change you. Marriage should make you better. It should help you be able to complement who you are and make you a better person, but not completely change you. But at the end of the day, you don't even know who you are. Now, in the place where you guys what you're giving away is too much. I mean, it's going to drain you at some point, and it's going to haunt you. one day you're going to try and sleep and you'll not be able to sleep because you're imagining how much I have had to spend. The future is uncertain. I have had to take all my savings, try and please you. So let me also look at it from this other angle. Is the other partner also understanding the compromises I'm making? Are they understanding the things I'm trying to do for them? So that if it makes sense to them, then there is a level to which I'm willing to go down, I'm willing to sacrifice, beyond which if I go beyond that, I might alter my value for you, I might alter my productivity in this relationship. Yes.
All right. Well, interestingly, as we get to wind up this conversation, I think it's important that we come out with a solution because in most cases, yes, I agree that this is such a tough moment to strike a balance. So what do you do when your partner has different goals? Do you run away? Is it possible for partners with different goals to survive the tough tides and, make a beautiful family, make a beautiful relationship? Rahab.
I think it will be hard, but then again, it depends on how much you want to commit to it. Because first of all, and I said and always insist, come into marriage when you're self-aware. Where do you want to go? So that when you get someone who will complement you to get where you want to be. And it must be his also goal, because it will be very unfair that you want to get to a certain goal and then you're bringing in someone who's going a different direction. For him, it will be very exhausting. This person would be bitter for the rest of his life. So you don't really have to be with someone person and saying, can this work? Can I compromise with this and that? And if it can't, then you just say it's okay. You will get that person, and you don't have to really get married. It's not like people are pressuring you to do so, because most of the time I see ladies especially really struggle to settle down with just anyone, and then at the end of the day it doesn't work, because this person, his goals were different. He's not into what you are doing, he started telling you stop working, maybe that's not what you wanted. At the end of the day, you see people really hating each other and they're still in marriage, and that's not good. You need to be friends first, and that is worked on during courtship. You need to know this guy so that even when you're feeling insecure about something, you talk to him like he's your friend, and you even laugh about it, I don't like this co-worker of yours who calls you in the middle of the night because, her bed is not well set or something, such things. And you can even laugh about it, I don't like the way this person looks at you, but I have nothing to do with that. Because you have to know, when you get into marriage with someone, they don't lose their individuality. People will still crush them, people will still love them, but it's how they react to that matters, you see, and how you also communicate about how you're feeling about all these things. So if you're not friends, and maybe you want to go back to school, you want to work on your PhD, and this person is even, that's waste of money, you really have to be in a place where you can talk, discuss, compromise, and some sacrifices made, because at the end of the day, there's the financial bit of it, who's paying for this, who's paying for that, know. And if you're not friends, first of all, that can't work. So your goals will also be shattered, because at the end of the day, you're married to someone who is always negative about what you're doing.
Becomes hard. All right, well, that's an interesting conversation right there. Skyvy Ken, in a minute or so as we get to wind up, how do you get yourself from that point of rigidness to accepting that, this is another person that I am bringing into my life? We need to sit down, have couple goals first, and we also need to sit down and consider my goals and his goals or her goals, and, we just strike a balance. How do you get from that point where you're so rigid to loosening up and ensuring that you have a conversation that is helpful for both of you? I guess we've lost Skyvy, but anyway, in the best interest of time, it is exactly 4 minutes to 9 a.m. It's important that we get to lock this conversation there. I'm sure you've picked something or two that will be of help to you. Now that we've lost Skyvy Ken, who's an author and as public speaker, and also We had Rehab Nancy, who's a psychologist. I'm sure they have done what they could have done best at this particular time. We get to wind up the conversation from there. Thank you so much for the great feedback. We get to see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. My name is Linda Alela. That is where we get to wind up Morning Cafe. Bye-bye.